many times over the years, but I have never been to the Japanese gardens. Now, we are in the middle of winter here, so there's not a lot of things in bloom, but still a beautiful design and layout here. And look at all of the bird life. And on a dull winter's day like today, one has to look for things to inspire them. And of course, there's nothing better than red amongst green. So I'm pretty sure that this is still going to make a beautiful painting here today. See how I've now turned my filbert over like that, because I just want to block in tones of this green. So I'm now doing a different movement as I pick up the paint. So I'm scooping up the paint like that. I've got a big chunk of it because I want to get a lot of it on here. And when you're painting plein air, like I am today, it's important to paint a little bit quickly. This is my olive green up here. I'm just grabbing that up there, mixing into the olive green. A little bit more of the red oxide. Now, see that? I don't want to mix it too much on here. So starting back here and moving down. Not much paint left, but I don't need much. So very minimal paint on my palette knife, and I'm just doing these things like this. And I'm doing it at a slight angle, like I was doing with my brush strokes before. Because although I wanted the water blocked in horizontally so it was nice and flat, by doing this I'm creating that little bit of movement in the water now, and I'm just getting a few of these sort of strokes going across like that. So there we go. This is giving me my bank colour for back here, and then my bank colour for here is slightly darker. I'm just going to grab a little bit more red oxide and pop it in here. I don't want to mix it completely in, because when I'm looking at that bank it's actually different tones. There's also a smidgen, just a tiny teeny bit of the burnt umber in there too. Back to my beautiful filbert, and I'm scooping up some of that lighter colour to start with, and I'm just brushing it up the bank there like that. So I'm getting these pink tones in here because in front of that I can really see standing out some of the toning grey yellow colour that I've got. So creating a little bit of a contrast in here. Definitely a complicated painting today, but you don't have to do it all in one day. Think about it, this is what Monet used to do all the time. Monet created this for himself so that he could paint year round with the seasons as they change. So painting in winter here today with no leaves on the trees. Imagine this in autumn, imagine this in spring, especially if these are all cherry blossoms. We really may have to come back here and capture that. Yes, if you're a fan of Monet's like I am, and I had the privilege of having the gardens, Monet's gardens, to ourselves. Terry and I went over there a few years ago. Terry organised for it for me, which was a wonderful surprise, and I painted on location in Monet's garden, and that was a total highlight for an artist, as you can imagine. Now this is where perspective comes into it. It gets a little confusing, but this has got to be the same height across here. If it means you've got to get a ruler out, get a ruler out. It's okay. And again, I would expect that you're doing this when everything else is dry. And I can feel the raindrops starting, so I can't believe I got this far with the bridge and I'm going to have to finish the rest of it in the studio. That's what happens when you paint outdoors. Okay, so we're out of the rain and back in the studio, and I actually put my two palettes that I was using together, and they've ended up being like a Rorschach, which is what Ben Quilty's famous for painting, so look that up. So it's all about green here today, right? So have a look around. Because we're back in the studio, I decided to bring out a few other paintings. This one here I created live in Monet's garden over in France. We had the whole gardens to ourselves, which was pretty special. And this is a painting I created back here in Australia from photos that I took. This is another photo, lots of greens from a local park creek area. This is another one from Monet's garden, and this one I painted about 20 years ago of a botanical garden of Mount Cootha here in Brisbane. So lots and lots of greens on green here. Lucky for us, we've got a nice bright red bridge in the middle to brighten things up. A nice shadowy sort of shade in the bottom here. Now I want to get some highlights over that. While that's drying, I'm going to go to my ducks. So I've got some brown ducks here. And you know what? This reminds me of a story. My grandmother, my nana, who passed away at the age of almost 96 about 5 years ago, used to always draw me ducks. And she used to go like that. And that was her way of drawing a duck. And she actually wasn't too far from getting that right. She said she wasn't all that great at art, but she could draw a duck. And when I was about 10, I used to teach her and her friend how to paint. So now I'm just doing little ducks like that. So this one, see if we go back to my demonstration here, they're really not that hard. So these fellas are sort of swimming in this direction. My brush through like that, I'm twisting and dragging, and I'm just getting like, you know how when ducks are swimming they create long elongated V's behind them. Oh, that scraping of my fingernail on the canvas. And it's done. I hope you've enjoyed visiting the Japanese gardens in Toowoomba with me today. Now, it is a little bit more of a complicated painting. As I said, make sure you do it step by step. And this is the beauty, right, of having an art video, because you can pause it, go back, go forward. Now remember, when you're painting, I want to see what you paint. So make sure that you send in some images to info@artclassonline.com.au. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook, like our Facebook page and our Instagram page, because then you'll get the latest updates on what's happening in the studio. So until next time, happy creating.